When I was making plans to retire by age 40, I kept that a secret from my boss because I feared if I let my boss in on the secret, he'd get rid of me. He'd replace me. Well, John Heisler actually told his boss, and his boss gave him over $100,000 to make a down payment on one of the properties that provided enough cash flow for John ultimately to quit his job. We could all use John's wisdom and flip the script a little bit. Instead of keeping things a secret, utilize our relationships and local banks in order to take down more game-changing properties. Now, John also does 50 deals a year. He wholesales to help him get in front of the very best deals and generate cash. And then he's able to keep the rest. And I really took away how to use banks for something like vacant land, which is a little bit trickier to lend on than when you buy a house. So I think this one's going to be great for you guys if you're getting started to change your mind and open that up to the possibilities of your relationships around you. But also for those of you who are wholesaling at 50 deals a year, how to take down more properties that can really increase your wealth. Okay, so that must mean you used to do medical device sales, or were you a doctor, or what did you do?
I was a critical care physician assistant for 13 years, and then finally stopped a couple years ago.
What was that like?
Oh, it was awesome. I loved take that back. I loved about half of it. Like a couple times a day, you did something like incredibly cool that no one else gets to see or do in their life. But then outside of that, you're in the hospital for 13 hours, day shift, night shift, holidays, weekends. So kind of got tired of that grind, but I still miss it sometimes.
Now, how's your life in real estate investing?
Well, still grinding, but totally on my own schedule and totally different now. I love it. Love where I'm at now. I've got like young kids. I got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, so it's perfect time to. They're in elementary school, still actually like me and want to spend time with me. So it's kind of cool to go take trips whenever and make time for them when they have time.
How long have you been doing real estate?
So I bought a couple rentals in 18, 19, and I really thought I only wanted to do passive investing and just didn't go fast enough for me. You get sold that kind of big dream online that, I'm going to change my life with a couple rentals. Then you get, $100 cash flow, and then a water heater goes out and that's your whole cash flow for the year. So yeah, it's like, this isn't fast enough for me. So then jumped into the business side and started sending out mailers and took off from there.
And then what did you do wholesaling from that standpoint?
Yeah, I kind of started two things in parallel. The goal was to send out direct mail to houses just to buy more for myself. I never really thought I was going to get into wholesaling, but started sending out $5,000 or $10,000 mailers a month, and that adds up, especially if you're only buying a couple for yourself. So started looking into selling those, and so kind of fell into wholesaling that way. At the same time, like the very first round of postcards I sent out, it was like 700 postcards. It shouldn't have worked at all, but I got 2 houses out of it. But kind of more importantly, the first call I ever got was a guy with an industrial warehouse. And he just called up and said, "Hey, you mailed me. I don't have a house for sale, but I have a warehouse for sale. Do you buy warehouses?" And I was like, "Sure." And I picked up Audible and downloaded a book. It was like a 30-minute drive down there. I went down there that same day, walked it with him, and kind of looked at everything and kind of nodded my head appropriately because I didn't know what he was talking about with an industrial warehouse with all like the 3-phase electrical and all that stuff I know now. Back then I didn't know anything, but his price seemed decent. He wanted $500K for it. It was a pretty big size warehouse. I was like, okay, maybe this is a deal. So got it under contract, and I was like, now I got to find somebody that knows commercial real estate that can help me out.
Yeah.
So kind of went from there.
Did you find somebody?
Yeah. So I remember meeting a guy a couple months ago at a local real estate meetup in Georgia where I was at that had said the same thing. This was in 2020. So prices were starting to go up. They obviously got even worse, but at the time he's like, the prices are ridiculous in residential. I'm going commercial. So I remembered that conversation. I couldn't remember his name, so I called the guy who ran the meetup, and he remembered his name and put us together. Ran the deal by him. He's like, "Yeah, that's the deal." So we got under contract. We pushed it. We ended up not buying that thing. The seller ended up evicting his best tenant, but that guy and I became friends and started looking at commercial deals together. And
so you didn't close on the warehouse?
No, but a couple months later, we were working with the bank to get it done. There was 2 tenants, one on each side, and the seller ended up having some like erosion issues, and then evicted both tenants, and then it became not super lendable for the bank. We still kind of tried to push the deal, but ultimately he ended up listing it with a broker and selling it. But I became friends with that guy. His name's Ricky, and we started looking at different buildings together, and then we found one a couple months later that worked, and so we bought that one.
Got it.
So it kind of like started residential and commercial at the same time, kind of weirdly. So
when you say you bought it though, when did you start wholesaling? Did you
2020?
So that you did the direct mail, but you didn't wholesale either one of those deals. You were just looking for good deals for yourself.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then did a couple, ended up kind of fixing those up and selling those, and then kind of got into wholesaling from there.
Got it.
Yeah.
So how do you pick which ones you wholesale versus keep? I imagine it has to do with your current cash at the moment and how it's being utilized, right?
Yeah, always struggled with that. Wanted to, and always ended up kind of in this roller coaster of like cash poor sometimes and cash rich sometimes. And it's a struggle because, in the wholesale business, your best deals that you're going to make big rippers on are obviously going to be your best holds. So you got to kind of think through that. The way I get around it now is I just hold commercial and sold residential. So.
Oh, really? So you'll wholesale all the residential stuff?
Yep.
And the commercial, why do you like it better for holding it?
A couple of things. One, the biggest reason being, every real estate transaction has issues and headaches and problems. It doesn't matter if it's a $5K wholesale deal or $1 million plus commercial deal. It's going to have issues, and they can be slightly bigger in commercial sometimes. But honestly, I find there's the same amount of issues, and less deals can kind of get me to where I want to go. So we started off kind of on one side building the wholesale team to kind of grow revenue, generate active income, and then take that cash and then try to get one or two commercial deals a year to kind of dump that money into somewhere. Helps with taxes a lot too, if you can actually buy stuff.
The commercial stuff is better for taxes, right? You get more tax breaks on commercial, I think, right?
So it depreciates actually on a slightly longer year time frame, but it's just let's say you make $1 million and you've got to offset $1 million. So you just go buy one building, cost segregate that thing and accelerate depreciate it and pay no taxes
for that year.
Right. Yeah. So,
and I've heard of people doing cost segregation on their actual rental portfolio, but I think there's just bigger opportunities in the commercial stuff from what I found out. Like you might have a room with like 3 different levels of lighting.
Yep.
Right. So that's quite a bit of expense for each, series of lighting, and in a house you wouldn't really have that.
It's true. Yeah. Storage too is all metal and steel. And
what does your portfolio look like then right now?
Yeah. So I think I have 15 or 20 single family houses. I'm actively not buying anymore. Then I've got 2 industrial buildings, 2 industrial warehouses, 2 storage facilities, 2 offices, a retail strip center, and we're under contract to buy a kind of small multi-portfolio, and what else? And got a bunch of LOIs out right now, so pushing hard on commercial right now.
Yeah. How do you find most of those commercial deals? Do you also do direct mail like you talked about in the beginning?
Mostly actually for that, a mix of cold calling and, I guess 3 things. Cold calling, talking to brokers of stuff that's listed online. I find one of the things in commercial compared to residential, starting to get there in residential, but stuff's sitting longer. Interest rates are still high, so it's a lot more likely that you can call a broker and get a deal done in commercial.
Yeah.
So, and then the third is referrals. I get a ton of referrals sent to me now that I'm just kind of put myself out there as the guy that's pivoted from residential to commercial. So locally and kind of nationally a little bit, people are sending me deals to look at and help them with. So.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
So I have 18 rental properties similar to you, and I've never done a commercial deal. So what type of cash would I need to make on a down payment if I was going to go buy, a warehouse in Austin or something like that?
Yeah, good question.
Or, well, I'll let you answer that too. But another thing was let's say I just have a plot of land that I think should be a storage facility. It's I don't really know, where do you get a loan for land? It's harder than a single family house to develop it.
Yeah. So I love existing commercial buildings kind of in 2 ways. One, value add is what they call it, essentially very similar to if you're a fix and flipper or someone like that. Building needs work, whether that's just pure construction or maybe it's poorly managed or under rented. All those things, if you can raise the rents or reduce expenses or make the building a lot nicer. A lot of times in commercial, what's awesome is because stuff's valued off a cap rate, you can double what your building's worth in like a year of just fixing it up and cleaning it up and doing all that. As far as down payments and bank loans in commercial compared to residential, you're dealing a lot of times with local small banks or at least regional banks. So one of the things that when I got my first couple, I just cold called 20, 25 banks in the area to find lenders to work with.
Okay.
But,
so I guess at what point did you have the deal under contract before you started calling banks?
Yeah. Just make sure you have enough time in there. And that's the nice thing about commercial too, is you don't have to close it in 14, 30 days.
What do you typically close
deal.
it in?
If I'm really, really confident in the deal, 60 days, but 120 preferred.
More normal?
Yeah.
And what all are you doing during that time?
So inspection period, what's also different about commercial, there's not like a standard inspector you're going to go pay $500 to go look at the property.
Yeah.
So what we typically do is call the big trades out and have them go look at it. My electrician, my HVAC guy, my plumber, definitely looking at the roof. So all the big stuff you care about in residential anyways. And then walk in every unit or every square inch of the property myself. And then if I have a GC or trusted contractor, I walk it with them and kind of work on the scope of work in the background. A massive one that people don't think about is talk to your fire marshal, look at your fire suppression, fire sprinkler rules in the area. We were not expecting that in our first office building. We got tagged with like $160K fire sprinkler system we had to put in. So making sure you understand that.
So why didn't the old owner have to have it, but you did? Was it the change in ownership that just triggered them to figure that out, or?
We bought that office building out of foreclosure, so because it had lost its certificate of occupancy, it was subject to all the new rules. That local area had a couple of fires, and so they were a lot more strict on the fire rules by then.
Yeah, that's a hell of a system.
Yeah, but again, if I had
that's not just alarms. That's like sprinkler stuff.
Full sprinkler, full building alarm. Yeah, they're not cheap. 150K minimum. I paid $250K before. Just depends. Yeah.
Oh, did you answer the down payment, by the way?
Oh, no, I forgot. If you get a regular kind of commercial bank loan, you're still looking at 20, 25%. We talk to all of our sellers about seller finance just to try to get in there at 10, 15% if we can. But a bank's going to want 20, 25%. They're kind of similar rates, actually maybe even slightly higher a lot of times than what you get like a Fannie Freddie loan for. What else? Oh, the biggest thing, the amortization schedule in commercial in kind of a classic small bank loan is 20 years, not 30. And so that can mess with your cash flow if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah, higher monthly payment.
Yeah, by a couple grand at least usually.
But would it balloon?
Also most commercial banks, the standard is the loan essentially resets every 5 years.
Got it.
So it's a 20-year am, but every 5 years you got to re-up with them.
So that's actually why you can find better commercial deals right now, is because so many of those loans are five years, right? So it's been about 2-3 years since we've had higher rates, right? So for some of those people, I mean, there's just a tranche of properties that are going to hit that every year, right? So there's a couple more years of good deals, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's a good time to be looking, and you can find good deals on market if you're looking.
What platform do you guys use to look at deals? The standard ones like LoopNet, or you guys buy something?
So we have a CoStar subscription. We use a lot of Crexy. I love looking at local MLS, because what's unique about commercial, in residential, you just throw your property on MLS and it syndicates to Zillow and Redfin and all that. In commercial, it's kind of one, and so a lot of times the brokers will just throw it on one platform.
So some platforms have stuff that aren't on other platforms, right?
Yeah. So I love local MLS because sometimes an agent will throw it on there and not throw it anywhere else, and no one's seeing it. It's on Zillow. So.
And that is weird that the MLS is central on the residential side, and for me, I never really thought about commercial. It's mostly on CoStar or LoopNet, right? That people list it. It's like the main site. Yeah. What is Crexy? Just another platform? Just CREX or something?
CREXI, and it's just a similar platform to LoopNet. The agents on their side can pay to list or put up leases, and then you can browse just like you would anything else.
Is there anything else you use like CoStar for? Like, why do you pay for it versus just looking at LoopNet, for example? Because they're the same company, I think.
They are, yeah. CoStar bought LoopNet and Homes.com and Apartments.com and a bunch of other stuff. But I like it for kind of quick napkin math, which you can do in an area. It'll try to show you comparable sales. It will try to show you market rents and potentially market cap rates if it has enough for the area. Now you got to take it with a grain of salt. Like, it's just pulling data that CoStar's personally. They've got a bunch of agents who call sellers and buyers and try to track down these transactions and figure out why something sold at this amount of money and what the revenue was. So they try to do a bunch of research to give you that information, but they're getting it from the sellers and buyers. So
got it.
As long as you take it with a grain of salt, it's definitely helpful to kind of quick look at deals, which is a lot harder to do if you don't know those numbers.
Got it. Oh, cool. Do you do real estate investing by yourself, or how do you manage what's your business look like?
Yeah, so kind of my main active businesses are by myself, but what's cool about commercial too, I've got a partner in almost every single deal, and each one is a little bit different. And so if you've got a commercial deal where someone can bring value, or if they bring it to me, we've partnered on it. We did a big storage conversion. We converted an office building into storage, and so we brought on a partner who was a storage expert, and it just worked because you had a bigger deal. So that's what I love about commercial. You can all of mine have slightly different partnerships, and it's a kind of one-off partnership. Everyone knows their role, and just kind of make it work.
How do you guys decide who makes decisions in a partnership like that? How do you figure that out?
So we try to have a managing member is what it's technically called, or just kind of a primary person. Sometimes we'll talk about it just like, if you're building out your org chart for your wholesale, your fix and flip business, you're technically supposed to have a CEO, COO, all those things. We'll talk about what each person's roles are for the property, because essentially it's a mini business.
Yep.
You may be wearing 20 hats, but if one of them is CEO, one of them sales director,
right,
etc.
Well, and on the wholesaling business side, and the people that I've talked to here, a lot of them have started with a partner, and then their needs and wants change.
Yep.
Or maybe one person was the money guy, one person was the hustle guy, but eventually the hustle guy is going to get enough money. He's going to stop wanting to split all these profits with somebody who was just the money guy, because he doesn't need the money guy anymore. So, but with a property, you can't really just split a partnership up, usually without selling the property, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking, because it is different, right? And those partnerships are longer term. It's not like the people are breaking that up typically.
Yeah.
So
what I like about it, partially, I feel like in your wholesale, your fix and flip business, a partnership there is truly a marriage. The two of you, if it's two, are working hand in hand almost every day. Everyone's got defined roles. What's nice about commercial is because it's tucked into that one building. Yes, it's potentially, you hope to hold it a longer time, so hopefully it's a longer term thing, but everyone's got their defined roles and they kind of stick to it. We have had ownership percentage changes in different ones as people's roles kind of grew or lessened, but and our first couple deals, back to the funding piece, one of the ways that we fund these, we just call it an LLC partnership. So the first two office buildings we bought, there was two, myself and another person were the general partners. We did all the work. We brought two guys who had capital. They were the limited partners. They brought the capital, didn't do any work. And we just formed an LLC that bought the building. So that's how their capital was invested. And they just got a flat ownership percentage of that LLC that owned the business. The cool thing, because it was a smaller deal, there was only two of them and two of us, so 4 individuals, is when we sold those buildings, we all were on board with doing a 1031 exchange. And so we bought new real estate with that, avoided a massive tax bill just because everyone was on the same page. And so now we own 4 or 5 buildings with that same group, just based off the profit from the first couple.
Got it.
Yeah.
When you're entering a partnership like that, are you often putting the deal together, or are you also often bringing cash for that down payment?
Yeah, I'm more of the hustler guy. I try to, I bring some of my own capital, but I try to preserve it just for when things go bad. And I've had to save plenty of deals. With that sprinkler system, for example, had to put up money to get it done. But typically I'm the guy finding the deal or getting it referred to me and making sure the numbers work and structuring it. Like I love that part of it, the kind of puzzle piece of let's make it work.
Yeah, and you get paid for that work, right?
Yeah.
With equity in the building and I suppose portion of the cash flow when it's operating, right?
Yeah.
So when you started, you must have had to do quite a bit of networking with some established people. How did you go about doing that? Was there a meetup? I think you said originally there was a meetup you were attending?
Yeah, I go to a lot of the local real estate meetups. I live in the Atlanta area, just in the Georgia local groups. I'm in a lot of different national groups, whether it's CG and the other ones that I'm in. So I do a ton of networking that way. But just have kind of lucked out to where when we've had a deal that had a need for a specific partner, whether that was capital or a storage person or whatever, we kind of then worked within our network and figured out who was the right person to do that.
I'm thinking that when you were in the critical care unit one night, there was some real estate investor who just gave you some knowledge. Is that what happened? Is that how you decided this was going to be your route?
And well, the first two capital partners I used were physicians I worked with in the hospital, so that was awesome. But
how was that? Because were you like, it's kind of intimidating to be responsible for somebody's money if you haven't done it before, right? So like, how did you get over that feeling, especially like a high stakes relationship like that where you're working with them?
Yeah, good question. It's a mix of one, they already had worked with these folks for a while. There was already kind of a deep trust relationship. They knew my character. So that's a great start. But I was still relatively new to real estate. So I think I did the whole classic, everyone tells you, tell everyone what you're doing. And so I did that for several years. I'm getting into real estate, I'm doing this. And so everybody kind of knew about it. And so once I had a deal good enough to put in front of them, it just made sense.
Had they done a deal before with somebody like that?
Yes.
So both of them, they had experience.
Yeah, both of them had a couple rentals here and there. And so, good fit.
Nice. So what upcoming this year with your daughter, or was it multiple kids?
Yeah, we've got a son and a daughter, yeah.
Okay. What are you looking forward to now that you can take trips and stuff without having to work a kind of crazy schedule?
Oh, yeah. We did New York back in December and got to tour all the classic things. They're finally like at travel age and can handle all that. We took them to the Dominican for spring break in April. We've got a couple more. I don't think we've got them officially booked, but they've got a couple places they're begging to go next. But a lot of travel, and then I try to break work when they're getting home, kind of in that 3:30, 4 o'clock range, be present for them. Halftime, they're still going to go out and play with their friends. But I'm there, I'm present. If they want to hang with dad, they can. And then if I got to get back to work and they're off playing with somebody else, we do it that way. So I'm just kind of physical stop point right then.
Yeah. What's like an unconventional parenting mentality that you have with your kids, if anything?
We talk openly about money all the time. And they know what we're doing, why we're doing it. So I'm trying to instill the kind of a lot of the rich dad, poor dad kind of stuff early in them. My son at 9's already read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
What do they think of that stuff?
Well, I'd probably talk about it too much because they're like, Dad, don't talk about all that business stuff. But but every now and then we get a long car ride, they'll let me do it. But it's just I try to get them to understand the power of leverage, whether that's loans or business leverage, and understand kind of even if they don't go into real estate as their primary gig, I feel like everybody should own some real estate.
Have you played the cash flow game with them?
I haven't. I've heard about it.
Oh, they'd really like that, I bet.
Yeah,
because it's better than talking about it.
Absolutely, I need to do that.
Actually win a game, just very fun.
Nice.
What's the CRE Playbook?
Yeah, so I'm passionate that I was a W-2 investor, that office deal I told you about, I was putting that pitch deck together on night shift. So one, I think anybody can do commercial. Two, I was hustling, wholesale, fix and flip, did all the things, and I'm in all these groups with folks like that. And a lot of folks that are into the active income, even if they got into real estate like me, looking for passive cash flow, you're in the grind every day and you're not owning stuff, you're not buying stuff. And to that point we were talking about, it's hard to take that $60K wholesale deal off the board and go buy it when your team needs $60K and you got people to pay. So I feel like everybody should be buying, one commercial deal a year. And if you're already in this business doing fix and flip, wholesale, whatever, you know how to do it. You just need a little extra push to kind of know some of the nuances that doesn't exist in residential. But you know how to find deals, you know how to talk to sellers, you know how to talk to agents, you know how to do all the contract and diligence and all that. So you just need just a couple little tweaks. And once you know those things, like, you should be definitely buying commercial.
So is the book something you provide?
Yeah, so it just kind of started a coaching program and community around getting folks their first commercial deal. It just started this year. Been doing it for just a few months, but our first round of students are already crushing it. One of them that's here this week has a $6 million portfolio under contract in the Kentucky area. One has bought a retail strip center up in Indiana, and so I've seen it work. I really feel like anybody can do this and quickly.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Congratulations on launching it.
Thanks.
How did they find you?
Right now, it's mostly just folks who they've heard me preaching about commercial for the past 5 or 6 years in different groups that I'm in. So just working with folks that reach out to me and say, hey, this has been on my mind. I want to get into this. I want to get that kind of a couple more deals and really double, quadruple my net worth or cash flow. And commercial can get you there.
So would somebody, they would need to have 25% for a down payment on something, right? To consider doing that?
Not necessarily. So I got my first deal. They cut us a check for the rehab. I didn't have any money out of pocket in it right away. Eventually we did with the
bank, you're saying your local bank that you found?
That one we did with the bank loan and the capital partners. So that's how I recommend most people get into it. You don't.
Capital partner was your guy that you met at at work?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yep. So I like mixing kind of bank debt or construction loan with someone that has private capital that wants to come in as an equity partner. It gives you a little bit of more risk diversification. And so then you've got someone bringing cash, you're going to find the deal, structure it, do the work, manage it. And it's a nice setup. And you don't necessarily have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars to go buy a $5 million deal.
Interesting. Well, would that be, what's the website we tell people?
Yeah, CRE-Playbook.com.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you're here at Collective Genius starting tomorrow. What's a big thing you've taken away from this group and learned?
Oh man, so much. I've been in CG since 2022, and when I first started, and I don't know if, I'm sure everyone here remembers 2022. The first half of the year was awesome. It was a carry on from 21, and the second half, at least for us, became tough as interest rates started going up. But we thought, like a lot of folks, that we had the Midas touch. We had the wholesale program, we were fixing flipping, we were buying up short-term rentals for some reason. I had several commercial deals going, and we just thought everything was going to be awesome. And then the rates hit, and everything struggled. And the very first CG I went to, I remember meeting Gary Harper and telling him all the different things I had done, and he was like, "You're unfocused." It was like the first thing he said to me. And I stewed over that the whole weekend because I was like, Gary doesn't approve of me and my business decisions. But ultimately, it took me several months to realize he was right. But then it's taken me several years to kind of pare that down to something, that makes sense. And I feel like that's just a problem with a lot of entrepreneurs. It's very, very easy to do a little this, do a little that, and do a little that. And I recognize I'm telling people to go do commercial on top of whatever they're doing, but you got to be focused on what you're doing and stop getting distracted. But so I think.
So how did you focus?
We started the long, slow process of selling all our short-term rentals. We set rules around what we were going to buy or not buy in the residential, and that has changed every year. To now, I'm buying literally zero. Like I get tempted, and my team's like, "You said you weren't going to buy any this year," and you're like, "You're right. I'm not going to." So setting rules for yourself, I think, is huge, and then trying to understand when you should be taking something down or when something's shiny object syndrome. But it's difficult. But having people hold you accountable, whether it's your own team or your friends at groups like this that tell you, like, "You said you weren't going to do that. Stop it."
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on all your success. I loved hearing about it. It was inspiring for me because I'm at the same residential place where you pivoted and started doing other things.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, cool. I hope you enjoy the rest of the meeting. And anything specific you're trying to get away from this week?
I think I think every meeting now, the biggest thing I come away with is reminding how far I have to come as like a leader. There's always a bunch of really good talks about being a better leader. I think last time Eric Brewer did one on Dream Manager. That was a great book, but just reminded every time I come that I can be a better leader for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we all can. It starts with what our own discipline and actions are, just reflecting personally, and how that can inspire others and set a good example. So thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and check out CREPlaybook.com.
CRE-playbook.com.
Oh, CRE like a hyphen.
Yeah.
CRE-playbook.com.
Yeah. Or check me out on Instagram, Facebook, wherever. John Heisler, Heisler. Yeah.
Will do.
Absolutely.
Thanks, John.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.